Hey guys, long time no see. I just been occupied with school, getting a bunch of books done for that. Not inclined to leave reviews for those though. I just finished the audiobook for Jurassic Park. Been slowly getting through it on Audible, and I want to post my review. So a big thing about Jurassic Park, and spoiler alert, I'll just go on in and disclose some of the differences from the movies with Steven Spielberg and stuff because the book is quite different. So if you don't want those differences spoiled, tune out. You've been warned. Okay, so first off, this novel, Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, it plays out like a horror, almost like an investigative horror. You got strange things happening in the build-up. You got babies being killed in their cribs and stuff like that going on early in the novel. People finding specimens, so like little dinosaurs and stuff, wondering what the heck is going on and such. So that is a big premise that builds the book, as then we get our characters of Dr. Grant and things like that. Um, which characters live and which characters die changes. Ian Malcolm dies first off, so that's a pretty big one. He dies from his wounds from the T-Rex. The lawyer lives. There's a different character that dies, I guess, in a similar spot as the lawyer, but it plays out completely differently. Wu dies. John Hammond dies at the end, and Muldoon lives, so the raptor hunter guy, and he's a bit different of a character. So there's interesting trade-offs you get, because I think Spielberg made a fun movie and found a way to have a flow to it, which opened up in a clear way to sequels. Whereas with this one, Michael Crichton is very much making an argument against hubris in the sciences, I guess you could say. Like Ian Malcolm makes a point to say, like, how arrogant it is to presume that we can destroy the planet. And he makes a point to say we can destroy ourselves, but the planet, no, that's outside of our scope. Even if we make the planet uninhabitable, we haven't destroyed it, basically. So it's an interesting critique of science and how science is not always cautious, how they tend to run before they can walk and do things just because they can. So from that perspective, the novel is very interesting. I think we get some interesting arguments from Michael Crichton, and I think that's ultimately one of the main reasons why you want to tune into this book, because it has interesting arguments, but it's different than the movie. For example, a Muldoon at one point blows up a raptor with a rocket launcher. We certainly didn't get that in the movies. It's a little gory. People get disemboweled by dinosaurs and stuff like that. So it plays out interestingly. But yeah, the big takeaways from the novel is the hubris. And even before John Hammond dies, he ends up being the one killed by the compies, almost kind of like what was his name, Dieter or something in Lost World when he gets eaten by the little green dinosaurs. That's more like Hammond's death, okay? Similar to that. So Hammond, before he dies, he's blaming all of the things that went wrong with the park on individuals who had died. Arnold, who does die, but in different contexts, somewhat different contexts than the movie. It's at least vaguely the same. Ellie doesn't even go down to that shed like she does in the movie. She's staying with Malcolm. That was Gennaro, the lawyer, who lives, interestingly enough. But, confusing myself here. Okay, yeah, the Hammond, he's blaming all the people that have died for what's gone wrong in the park in his mind, which is interesting because he intends to try this again. He did not learn his lesson. Hammond's a very arrogant person in these novels, well, in this novel, and it just comes out, his arrogance. He's the flea circus guy, and that story you kind of hear about a bit in the movie. It references that to show that he's a con man at the end of the day, that he doesn't really have principles or morals in playing people for their money, and he just wants to not be interfered with to do what he wants. So almost I don't even want to say necessarily a greedy capitalist. He's just a con man through and through. He's a con man and he lacks a lot of wisdom. So it's very interesting because Hammonds is kind of the villain in this story, which is very different from the movies. And yeah, and then it ultimately, when he goes down, you kind of realize it's a blessing because he was only going to cause more problems. Jurassic Park is very critical of gene manipulation, I guess you can say. It's kind of the Pandora's box of the book and how death and horror lies around the corner in consequence of doing this sort of thing. So that's kind of where the book lives. It's interesting. I definitely suggest you give it a read. It has a nice horror feel to it, and that is my take on it. So hope that was worth your while. Interesting novel, very different than movies. I would say if you don't want to say all is lost with Jurassic Park in terms of the last movies, not a bad idea to go listen to the novels because you may still find stuff you can enjoy that stirs some good thinking. So on that note, I'll see you guys around.